Welcome to the Vet Nation podcast, where we strive to awaken the warrior within. I am Shantae Hall, your host for today, joined by Ross Dickman, COO, newly COO of Hire Heroes USA. Thank you so much, Ross, for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be here, Shantae. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. Personally, I have supported and tried to volunteer with Hire Heroes USA since really the start of your organization. So I was just thrilled to be able to have you on the show today and to be able to get to know a little bit more about yourself and to share the mission.
Sure.
And it's perfectly timely because you just announced yesterday that you were COO, and I actually got the notes that you were coming on the show today, and I did not know. So,
yeah,
pretty cool.
Exciting time. I was serving as interim CEO through this year after our previous executive had a great opportunity, and he had to kind of jump at that kind of lifelong opportunity for him. And the board of directors asked me to steward the ship through 2020, which turned to be more challenging and interesting and fun task than I think any of us had envisioned back in early February. But no, we just announced our new CEO coming on board, Andrew Sando. Outstanding person. I'm excited for him to be here, and I'm excited the board's asked me to stay on as COO and work with Andrew to keep kind of growing our mission and delivering greater impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, this show is all about awakening the warrior within and kind of what keeps us motivated and moving forward after service. So I really want to make this show different than other shows when you come on, and because we can read the mission on a website, right? But we really want to kind of get into what differentiates every organization out there and why we continue to want to serve our communities. So I have a couple funny notes
Sure.
just for today, because I'm not sure if you knew that I interviewed for this position with Hire Heroes.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so love John, love the board of directors very much. Got all the way to the very last interview, and so I was beyond thrilled when I saw last night Andrew, and I just took another role myself. So again, the timing, but in doing so, Ross, I learned a lot about the mission of Hire Heroes, and so again, when I saw that you were coming on today, just so excited. So I want to go back.
Sure.
And I want to share with the readers or the listeners or the YouTubers what made you want to serve in the military in the first place.
I grew up
way back.
Yeah, I grew up in an Army family. My grandfather served in World War II and stayed in the Army through Korea and just a little bit after. And my dad and his two brothers all joined the Army as officers. So I knew nothing really but the Army lifestyle. When I was in 8th grade, I was on a youth group trip up to West Point. We watched a football game, we went skiing, and I was just obsessed. I thought it was really cool. And my dad told me, like, I don't think you'll like it. You're a little bit independent. Like, you're probably going to get in trouble. And I was like, I'll do it. I'm going to like it. Like, I describe it as the dumbest teenage rebellion ever, going to a military academy. When my dad, he was saying, you'd probably like Florida State better. That's where I went. Like, you'd like it. So just, looking back, like, wow, I didn't know how to make great decisions as a teenager, because instead of following my dad's recommendation of Florida State, I went to a military college. But, I wouldn't change that. It was really informative for me. Made a great group of friends and peers. Really shaped how I approach kind of everything from problem solving to decision making to just the rigor with which you need to bring to any activity.
Okay.
I was really fortunate to be commissioned as an aviation officer. So after graduation, I went to flight school at Fort Alabama and got to fly the Apache. And that was the helicopter I wanted. I was so stoked about the mission, providing close air support, and just being right there, kind of protecting soldiers on the ground by being the one that's getting in the way of fire, delivering fire. it was a super compelling mission that I was very excited about. Went to Fort Hood, Texas, where I'd served in a variety of roles, deployed a couple times. And then I had some sort of non-traditional Army pathways after that. I was an aide de camp at the U.S. Army Safety Center. And I got to go back to West Point, working in leader development and character education roles. And at that point, I kind of knew, active service in the uniform was nearing the end of that time that I could really do as well at that in terms of I just couldn't really balance the family side of it, my personal ambition side,
Right.
um, and how to start exploring what's out there. Failed at some interviews, fumbled my way through some stuff, and got connected with Hire Heroes USA though for the launch of a very specific program they were doing focused on disability employment.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting, I got to meet our first CEO at that time, Brian Stan,
Right.
and our COO at that time, Nate Smith, and kind of talked me through what did they hope to achieve with this research project, what did they hope to achieve with Hire Heroes USA. And it was very compelling, very interesting, very committed group of leaders there.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't say no, really. It was a super amazing opportunity to take advantage of, to go try something new. I say I sort of fell backwards into nonprofit. Didn't intend to end up there, but I've enjoyed every minute of it since getting out of the Army.
It's a continued service though, and you see your face light up when you talk about serving and continuing. So I come from a military background as well. I knew nothing but the Air Force life. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll leave the banter for later. Um, but exact same way, exact same story, deciding to get out and continue on with education. But I love that you found the need to continue serving. When I look at my military family and I think about the 3 R's, I call it, Ross: recruitment, retention, and reintegration. If we don't successfully reintegrate into a dominant culture, the civilian culture, we're not going to be able to support future recruitment efforts. And if we're not successful as we reintegrate, we're also not going to retain folks that are still serving. And the reason being is because why do most people join? Typically, it's that education. And so if they're not seeing the education aspect, if they're not seeing that it's launching us forward as we reintegrate into the culture, then why are they even going to stay in? Maybe they possibly think, well, it's better on the outside, I'll get out earlier. So with that being said, I hear that family lineage, and I think you're just an amazing example. You have children, I assume.
I have one child. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have a daughter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're watching your steps. You think about your whole family serving, and I think about the same with my family. How do we successfully, again, recruit in the future? And so I think that the mission of Hire Heroes is addressing all 3 of those R's.
Yeah, I think, from a national security perspective, having successful civilian careers afterwards is crucial. Both for, as you mentioned, kind of recruiting efforts, and that you can look to who is the veteran in your neighborhood and your community, or at scale, and do a data analysis of how are veterans performing, relative to non-veteran peers in the workforce. Are they active labor participants? Are they fully compensated labor participants? I think these are important questions in terms of the viability of military service as a profession and as a throughput arm for someone who's not going to do 20. It's an up or out system, the military
Right.
is. And so at a certain point, you're up or you're out. And if out isn't attractive, then we won't get enough volume at every kind of staff level, at every rank level, that up or out can be sustained. And so it does, I think, pose a national security implication. I'm really fascinated by the economic security implications of it, though, and that what we're doing isn't just helping one family or helping one service member or spouse, although those stories, the actual personal sense of gratification, the pride that you can feel from walking away and helping one individual, that's very compelling. That's really part of the rich tapestry of why we do what we do. But stepping back and looking at it from an economic perspective, the greatest generation came back and started new businesses. They elevated their
Right.
career status. They were business leaders 20 to 30 years later, as senior executives, CEOs. I mean, they shaped a huge resurgence in the US economy and exploration of new industries. And I'm really curious around that aspect for our clientele. You know, the E3 from any service who's getting out and has an opportunity to land on their feet right away in a career at a well compensated pay level that gives them upward mobility potential.
Right.
30 years, 40 years, what will they have accomplished? What will their community look like because of them? What will their family look like because of them? It's really fascinating to me because, that's looking at the future of the nation to say, it's not just the retention aspects of the recruiting aspects of a viable military force, although I do care greatly about making sure we have that. But for me, it's the security of the nation overall depends on a healthy and strong economy. And
Absolutely.
um, this year, if anything, it showed us that the economy, can be fickle. But what is the best bolster that we can have is a really quality labor force of committed leaders with strong ethical standards that not just meet business needs, but are going to chart those paths as the economy does its ebb and flow.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty in what we've witnessed on a global scale with the economy is that we have the ability as military service members, as a military community, the spouses, the dependents, to understand what it means to truly be adaptable, to be resilient, and to be able to step forward. And I think, and this pandemic has allowed us a voice. And I think to take away from the negative aspects possibly of the veteran community, because we know those negative aspects are out there, and for us to be able to launch forward and say, okay, we're ready to step up into the roles that are available, whatever those employment opportunities look like, let us step into them. We are adaptable, we are resilient, and we can carry you through what post-COVID is going to look like.
Yeah, I think some of the interesting aspects of military service that are really applicable now is this idea of a distributed team. Um, especially if you deployed, you hope that you would have your team on the same base or FOB as you, but that's not always the case. And so you might be leading an effort that's spread across a large footprint. And how are you protecting them? How are you managing risk? How are you ensuring that operational efficiency occurs? Those same problems are now over here at a much wider scale and causing business leaders to look at, well, of the footprint that I retain, how much in office is the right balance? And nobody can really predict what that answer is going to be, but I think having strong, capable veteran leaders throughout an organization can help you adapt around whichever answer is right for the business model that you have.
Absolutely, absolutely, beautifully said. And I think it's comical because I've heard so many from the civilian side. I'm losing my mind. I can't handle being at home. This isn't working for me. And then there's the military side that was like, I was like, okay, hunker down for a couple months. Like this is I looked at it as a deployment. This is what we do. It's no different. And so, how can we thrive in this time? How can we succeed? How can we showcase again to the world that we are those true servant leaders that are ready to get out there and get after to continue for America's economic strength and stability.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've seen from our staff and from our clientele, certainly the uncertainty about what's out there for positions. That's never a comfortable feeling, but
Right.
people's willingness to step into the breach, kind of challenge the unknown, and really seek new opportunities in this time has been really exciting. And I'm excited to say we're already over 9,000 confirmed hires this year. Last year was our best year ever at 10,607, and we are on pace to surpass that. That's really a hallmark of our clientele. These veterans and military spouses saying, it hasn't changed for me. My mission, my purpose is
Right.
to find a fulfilling career that supports my family and allows me to be in engagement with my community. Right on. Well, we're here to support that. We're here to help empower that. And we're going to be, whatever you need to help you achieve that. And it's just super exciting. They've gone out and created success at a time when the conventional wisdom says there's less opportunity and the chart.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
It's just a really exciting time for them. And I'm real pleased and proud for every one of those clients that's made something great happen for their family this year.
Absolutely. I love a recent story of an individual that said Hire Heroes supported him. He was previous captain in the military, pilot, went to be a United Airlines pilot, was let go, furloughed as a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And then because he was smart enough and had rental properties, he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go get my HVAC certification. And so now he's out there and he's just promoting his business within the trades. And he's already made over $1 million in revenue since the pandemic, all because it was one of those things where he started having these conversations and understanding essential personnel. So talk to me a little bit about, and so on today's podcast, what we're going to do, because it's COVID and this is a pandemic, I have a real world situation where one of my ACs went out in Houston, Texas. So yeah, comical. So the guy's about to come in here. If you hear a dog bark or something, I'll mute.
That's business environment now. Dog, children, all of that. That's just normal business now.
It is. But Ross, could you share now the exact mission of Hire Heroes USA?
Yeah, absolutely. We empower military veterans, service members, and military spouses to achieve success in the civilian workforce. And that's it in a nutshell. To me, the core part of that is empower. We're not going to handhold and do the work for you. We're going to help. We're going to model the correct work. We're going to educate and train you on the correct work. Then, teach, have you execute, coach, and develop from there. Because we really want our clientele to understand what the employment marketplace is, what it looks like, and how you fend for yourself in it. We tell them you're not by yourself, but you have to do it on your own. We're there to support, we're there to coach. We can exercise either partners or our volunteers or a variety of other agents and nonprofits that are interested in your success as well and are going to help you get there. But we really believe they have to lead that effort.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to drive that train, because if I go out there and pick this client up and put them in some job somewhere, odds are they're not going to last very long in it, because I put them where I want to put them. And that's not the job they want to be in. That's not the role they want, the industry. They might not feel like they belong there or that they're exercising their skills. So we have them start with, what are you good at? What do you like to do? Where do those skills interact? And what does that mean for the employment marketplace? And I think that's really what sets us apart, is that focus of, we're always here for you as a client. And if you worked with us 10 years ago and you need to come back, get some additional support, we are still here for you. But we are super excited when they go out and they are able to carve aspects of their career path on their own using the tools we equip them with.
It's a great point, because I had a conversation, earlier on, and about my nonprofit, Centurion Military Alliance. And I've also, my doctoral research is all based on what's called acculturation, and how we transition out of the military into a dominant culture, and that we are the ones who have to fit into the civilian culture, and it's not vice versa. And I share that because it's so interesting, all of these firms out there that have been helping individuals for years. So let's say specifically officers, they get out, they go through one of these big firms. This firm helps them land that job. And of course the firm gets them that job because they're positioning for that job. And all I've heard is individuals come back to me and say, Shantae, that did not set me up for success. Had I have really understood, and it's kind of a term that I use with the curriculum that I co-authored, is called positionality. I want an individual to be so self-aware and understand that positionality is constantly changing. It's constantly evolving due to the global trends of what's out there. No different than when we join the military, given a career, we're put on that pathway because of a need, because of a demand. And the civilian sector, Ross, as you've witnessed, it's no different. There are global demand jobs. There are jobs and positions that are out there that colleges promote, that institutions promote. Why? Because there's a high demand need. And so having those relevant conversations with a service member earlier on, I firmly believe makes all the difference in the world. And I think when you're looking at what Hire Heroes USA does and the reach and the continuum from mentor to mentee, is that helps with the mission. It allows them to keep going. So actually addressing suicide, I would say, when you're looking at, again, the negative aspects, the PTSD, have you with that from your mission?
Yeah, we don't have any data to support that. I mean, anecdotally, I think in your heart, and there's certainly enough tangentially associated research around the protective health factors that full-time employment or having a purpose do have for mental health, physical health, um, sense of identity, tribalism, whatever you would like to use as sort of the lens to examine that. But
Mm-hmm.
we don't have specific data. I think for us, it would be tenuous to say that we could verifiably prove anything with that because we don't dive that deep into our clientele's health data because it's, we want to respect that they have certain boundaries. We hope that with their transition specialist and the non-attributional support that they get there, that they'll share the aspects of it that help us help them craft their kind of interview style, their approach, as you talk about workplace concessions and equal opportunity employment. What does the workplace need to make sure that I am, compensated and adjusted for in terms of my disability condition or anything like that. But
Right.
we don't really dive deep into their personal health items around depression or suicide, just because that's starting to kind of really creep off of our mission of employment. I feel certainly that it's had an impact, but I think it would be irresponsible of me to say that that yes, we have had that because we can't
Yeah.
demonstrably prove it.
Right, right. But again, it's the anecdotal statistics and numbers that when you're looking at as an organization on a whole of what you're providing, that it's that next mission, it's that next step forward, and it's continuous. And anecdotally, we thrive for that next mission. So I typically say that education, finance, and vocation is cyclical, and that we can't negate one aspect or the other. And I would say that when I look at the mission of Hire Heroes USA, you're meeting every one of those needs. So you're having those discussions. Does your education, is it relevant to this next position that you have? And will that allow you to be financially stable? And so it's a continuum, and that's what what we coined the term of positionality. So how would you differentiate then? This is something that I've witnessed pre-COVID. I was able to travel all across the globe, and I loved it. I was able to, the Department of Defense recognizes the CMA multidisciplinary curriculum as a force multiplier. And so I was able to go on installations and actually teach the curriculum, and then meet Hire Heroes USA anywhere that I would go. And it was such a joy to know that when you have boots on the ground and you have those mentors and those advocates out there supporting and promoting, how would you say you differentiate what you do, what Hire Heroes USA does from other nonprofit organizations that are similar?
Yeah, there's a lot the skills of finding employment, what do you need to do? How do you tackle an interview? There's really no difference from one group to the other. I mean, understanding yourself, how to answer certain interview questions, and how to network, how to use LinkedIn. I mean,
Right.
those are all no one's really teaching anything very different there. What's really different in our approach is that we have managed to, through a very refined operations process, I like to say that we provide very, very personalized, high touch care and attention to empower these clients at a national scale that's unmatched. So with other groups that might be served similarly large quantities, you're probably not getting the same personalization that our transition specialists provide to their clientele on a daily, weekly basis. Um, Others might provide a much higher touch, but a very, very low throughput. So it might be regionally or focused in one city. Um, I think our key differentiator is that we're high touch and at scale. And that's very difficult to sustain because uh, the number of clients that come in per week, it's a constant mathematical problem that
Right.
operations and data team are very, very refined and focused at to make sure that are we meeting equitable demand? Are we producing the appropriate results? And what does our work rate efficiency look like to make sure that we're not just saying that we're high touch, but we're actively putting that time, attention, and care into each client so that they know they're getting that best return. It's it's a grind though.
Yeah.
Day over day, week over week. The kind of where the rubber meets the road for us is paying attention to the hiring process for kind of those foot soldiers, our transition specialists, the ones who are putting the grunt work in of actually calling, talking, coaching these individuals. You know, if you're empathic and a listener, it can be very challenging work because you get people at some of their hardest times.
Yeah.
They're unemployed or they're leaving the military, the only life they've known, and preparing a career change. And it's daunting and nerve-wracking. And so they're unloading some of the stress and anxiety on their transition specialist who's there to listen, you know, compile and return to them, actionable tasks and approaches and strategies so that they can actually find, hey, this is the direction I'm going in my career search.
Mm-hmm.
We made a decision a couple of years ago to really focus on our nationally distributed kind of at scale model versus going around and doing much more pointed kind of in-person delivery. We do some in-person delivery, but not at the scale that we used to when we started.
Right.
We really focused and shifted towards a virtual delivery of our service offering a couple years ago, which I think positioned us well for this year in that we've already helped over 4,000 clients just in our virtual webinars alone this
Mm-hmm.
year, which, one, that's amazing to me to see that we're able to touch and help so many new clients in this medium. But where I really dive into the data is, are we delivering the content that they care about?
Right. Right.
And that, because we had a foot ahead to say we're already leveraged and positioned to do virtual offerings, well, I think that put us a foot ahead for content. And so
Mm-hmm.
we pay close attention to a rating of attentiveness, which is measuring, we're in a virtual kind of conversation now, that
Right.
measures how often is this virtual screen that you're watching the top screen on your computer. Anyone who's been in kind of virtual meetings knows you can tell when someone's clicking around on other stuff, they got another screen
Oh
up.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so I pay close attention to that because that's a great measure of, is the quality of our content compelling enough that they pay attention, or at least that they're not putting some other screen on top of it. And so we're sitting about
Absolutely.
times higher than what our service provider says is the national rate for attentiveness. And that to me says, hey, that focus for us to focus on, we can deliver quality care at scale and still be really high touch in terms of treatment. That's given us that advantage to now focus on the caliber of content. And so I'm really excited to see actually what next year yields as things sort of kind of go back and forth between virtual and real life. Like, what does that look like? And how do we inject back in some of what we know are really positive in-person events? We're a huge partner with Mission 43 based in Boise, Idaho. Their mission is to make Idaho one of the most attractive states for veterans to live after their military service. And so they focus on education, they focus on employment, they focus on community engagement. And so our team out there, they're missing, I think, a little bit the opportunity to kind of get connected in some of those community engagement activities and be present in the communities. It's a
Right.
huge part of what matters there. And I think across the board, I think is missing some. We've got to figure out, that'll be an interesting question for leadership as we look to 2021 and beyond, is what's that right blend? But it's a
Yeah.
challenge I'm eager to take on.
Yeah, I think, Ross, earlier on, because, I had that boots on the ground, and what I found was, okay, this is beautiful. Like you said, we can meet via Zoom. I'm still instructing the same curriculum, but I found that there sometimes is a difference with maybe a government employee, and if they're at home, what programs are they sharing? What are they willing to share? Obviously, in our space, we've both witnessed that there are differences of personalities and kind of who maybe is led on or who's sharing with the transitioning service members information. And I've seen where an installation wants me to come out, and I have access to, a couple hundred troops. This year was supposed to be 3 to 5,000 troops coming through at different times with the curriculum, to where events are shut down. Now, where are those 3 to 5,000 people? And that has been my biggest concern, is how are we reaching them? And if you have access to this population, how are you sharing or not sharing? And specifically between you and I, because we like to make these podcasts really interesting, we want to engage the readers. I had come across Fort Bliss, and they had sent me an email saying, "Hey, Shantae, do you know who Hire Heroes USA is?" And I thankfully had your information, was able to, include you and Sandra and one other individual with Hire Heroes USA. And I said, they're a great resource. You should share this career fair. And I immediately sent it. I CC'd you guys. But I thought, how do you not know Hire Heroes USA? And at that moment, we were looking at, I believe it was April, May timeframe. And that gutted me, Ross, because I think this is an organization that, you're right. It's high touch, it's scalable, mentors all across the nation. And you're asking me who this is solely because I had boots on the ground at one point. Um, so thinking about that, how do you address that? And then the two part is they asked me, well, what's the difference between them and, you can imagine who else, hiring our heroes? And I thought, oh, how do I address this and be appropriate, right? How do I address this, Ross?
Well, I always say, the employment equation it's the same as supply versus demand. And I think that we're supply side. We're focused on the clientele. That's our bread and butter. Now, we work with the demand side. We work with employers. We want to help them understand the clientele that they're getting. Hiring our heroes through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I think they're on the demand side of the equation. They're primarily working with the employers, trying to understand what are they wanting, and then there's a much smaller pipeline of supply for them. So we exist in the same space, and we have very similar names, but
Right.
we're on different sides of the equation. So, I think we actually get along, really well with them in the space, in that we're both addressing unique needs of what's out there. If you run a career fair with Hire Heroes USA, what you can expect is, yeah, we're going to get employers in, but what you're really getting access to is our supply of interested clients who are career ready. They got a resume, they know how to network, they know what their skills, and they know what those roles are that they're after. If you do it with Hiring Our Heroes, you're going to get a lot more, probably very reputable organizations that have very robust veteran integration programs. They've got employee resource groups. These are organizations that want to have and are taking deliberate action towards veterans integration. But you're probably not going to get as large of a supply of the clientele. And so really, the type of virtual career fair that you run depends on what are you wanting to achieve with it. If
Mm-hmm.
you want to get the best employers in, I still make a case, come to us, because we've got a great a stable of employers that
Yeah.
want to work with veterans, that they have those same initiatives. Um, but you can also go to Hiring Our Heroes. They're a tremendous resource. And so I try to exist in the same space and recognize where are we approaching kind of the same orientation in a slightly different model. As far as kind of why people don't know about us, Our largest referral basis is word of mouth, which is based off of our clients having successful interactions and wanting their friends, their peers, their family to know. And to me, I'm really proud of that. If word of mouth was very low for us, then that would tell me that we're not doing our service delivery appropriately. And
Right.
so I'm comfortable with that. There's plenty of people out there that don't know who we are. It's on my strategic agenda to say, let's get our name out there, let's get our brand out there, let's make sure they're aware of the value that we deliver.
Yep.
Let's make sure that they understand what are these service members and military spouses going to get out of working with Fire Heroes USA. But yeah,
Absolutely.
there's tons of people who don't know who we are, and that's okay. And I answer the question around how are we different from them too much, too many times. So I think we exist in the same space, but we have a good respect of each other, and we understand how we operate differently.
Yeah. There are over 250,000 transitioning service members. We've got military spouses and dependents. Our military community needs support at all levels, and not one individual or one organization can meet that. And so your answer, absolutely beautiful, especially for the newly COO of Hire Heroes USA. That was great, Ross. Um, and thinking about maybe one final thing that you would like to share about Hire Heroes USA, what is an immediate demand, a need? How can we support? What would you say that is?
First, I mean, to your previous question, if you know of veterans or military spouses who are in need of support, let them know about Hire Heroes USA. I'm super proud of our Serving Spouses program. This year, they've already passed their 2018 hires. This year, they've already helped about 1,400 spouses, with nearly 900 of them hired already. I mean, it's phenomenal what they're doing. And at a time when military spouse employment is almost 3 times as bad or 3 times worse than veterans unemployment, this is
Right.
a crucial service right now. And I can't say enough about how great they've done. So first, if you know of any veterans or military spouses in need, send them our way. Two, if you're passionate, if you care about investing in this type of a community, if you have skills that you want to help deliver, sign up to volunteer. Join our volunteer cadre. You can do it over your lunch break. It's all virtual, or you can deliver your skills and value to help kind of grow and professionalize our organization. We have a whole host and variety of ways that volunteers can invest in this community. And then lastly, we're a nonprofit. We operate solely kind of off of donations and charitable giving so that the military spouse and veteran can get our services for free. That's crucial for us. We don't want them to pay to get help in this area. And a lot of people feel uncomfortable asking for donations in the nonprofit space because you're doing this charitable mission. It feels icky at times, but
Right.
also
Right.
a crucial lifeblood of how do we deliver what we do is through charitable donations. So if you're someone who wants to support the mission, but you don't know veterans and you're not really comfortable volunteering, we do take donations through the website or any other means. This is heading into this year's Veterans Day with COVID and the rise in unemployment. I'm thinking about kind of what does our message to the nation really need to be about. And for us, it's that these service members and spouses are always forward. They're oriented on that next career path.
Yep.
And we want to really help propel them in that same direction. We want them to move forward as well, find that career that they love after the military, and provide 30, 40 years of being a leader in their community. And I think employment is such a crucial pillar for that. It gets us back to having really strong veterans employment leads to strong civic activation, which leads to healthy communities. And so I'm super excited about what we do. And I'm super excited that you asked me to come on today and kind of share with you and talk a bit. I really do appreciate it, Shante.
Uh, I absolutely love the mission again of Hire Heroes USA. Ross, I cannot thank you enough for sharing and spending this time. To those listening out there, reading again, YouTubers, podcasters, support initiatives like Hire Heroes USA. Ross is spot on. We're adaptable, we're resilient. We will ensure that we keep this great nation safe, secure, and economically booming. So, with that, Ross, thank you for continuing to awaken the warrior within. Thank you for continuing to serve this great nation. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.